today. So I'll say good morning. Thank you all for joining us. I wish it was under better circumstances. My name is Vicki Clark. I'm president of the Cape May County Chamber of Commerce. I'm happy that so many of you could join us today and share in learning from the experts that we have with us today from Triad Associates. We have Jake Botticello and Carolyn Zampino, who will be going through the various programs of loan assistance and grants that are available for us in business recovery due to COVID-19. So before they get started in the program today, I want to turn it over to Nina Rinaldi, who is going to go through some of the administrative controls of the webinar. I know many of you have been on some of these webinars that we've done today, but for those who haven't, it is important to kind of go through these administrative controls so everyone's familiar with how we're running the program today. So Nina, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Vicki, and welcome everyone. Just to go over a couple of things from the technical side. Everyone except our speakers will remain muted today, and the way that we're going to take your questions is through the text chat. So the way that you can send a chat is to go down to the bottom of the screen in your Zoom toolbar. If you're on a computer, you'll just have to move your mouse to see that. And you'll see a little chat icon, so you can click on that and type in your question. If you're on a smartphone or tablet, you may have to tap your screen to see that Zoom toolbar and to find the chat icon. You can go ahead and send your questions to the public chat to everyone. There's no need to send them to me individually. You can just go ahead and chat them publicly. And other than that, if you need something that is not a question for our presenters, you're welcome to chat me privately. I'll see if I can help you. Or you can also raise your hand. So you can find the raise hand feature on Zoom under the participants icon, which is also in your Zoom toolbar. So I hope that everybody gets a lot out of the presentation. And again, you can just put your questions into the text chat. So with that, I'll hand it off to our chairman at the Cape May County Chamber, Doug Burke. Go ahead, Doug.
Thank you, Nina. I want to first thank everyone for joining the call. Also especially thank our chamber team led by Vicki and Nina and John. You know, we've been trying to reinvent ourselves here a bit like we all are. You know, I joked last week about the number of Zoom calls we're now all on. I mean, it's my third today, right? So I'm sure we're all in the same boat with that, but we're trying as a chamber to bring as much value as we can to our members. We have a few calls scheduled for this week, and we're excited today. The Triad team, I was talking with Carolyn and Jake right before we hopped on, you know, this formal call here, and they have a lot of insights that they're going to share with us today. I think it's a good opportunity to consolidate all that's going on into one presentation. So we're excited to have them, and with that, I will turn it over to Carolyn and Jake. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Doug. And
Ma'am, you're muted.
sorry about that. Thanks, Doug. And I thank you, Vicki and Nina. We greatly appreciate the opportunity to speak with you and our fellow chamber members this morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Triad Associates web series, Helping Your Business Meet the Challenges of the COVID-19 Pandemic. And of course, this is being presented on behalf of the Cape May County Chamber of Commerce. My name is Carolyn Zampino, and I am the president of Triad Associates. And today I'm joined by Jake Botticello. Jake's my COVID response coordinator. Just a little bit about us and what you can expect from today's presentation. Triad Associates multidiscipline professional team, we have a passion for helping communities thrive. And as always, we're committed to identifying solutions to promote revitalization and growth for our clients. So we also hope to do that for each of you. What we've done is we've created a team that's dedicated to filtering through the rapid influx of information that's been coming at us all. And we're really drilling down so we can help in a few ways. First, we're providing recommendations on which program is going to be the best fit for your business. We're going to be able to assist in preparation and submission of the application packages. But most importantly, we hope to be able to provide that post-approval technical assistance. There's going to be a lot of reporting and information needing to go back and forth with the banks. It's most likely going to be a cumbersome process. Now, today, we're going to be reviewing the programs for small businesses, including those offered by the U.S. Small Business Administration and the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. As Nina indicated, we will be taking your questions at the end of the presentation, which will last approximately 15 minutes. As Nina indicated, at the bottom of your screen, there is a section to enter your questions via the chat. But additionally, if for some reason you're unable to submit your questions in this format, you can also submit them via email at covidhelp@triadincorporated.com. And we'll be sure to share those with Nina and Vicky. Now, I would like to introduce Jake Botticello, our COVID response coordinator.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And Carolyn, thanks for the introduction. The federal government in New Jersey have released a number of programs to address the economic impacts of the COVID-19 outbreak. Triad Associates has been tracking these programs, including how businesses can participate and be successful with applications and the various forgiveness and funding options that are available with these programs. This slide shows a number of programs that have been created as a response to the COVID-19 outbreak. We'll cover most of these throughout this presentation, but just so you know, this is the full spread of what has come about over the last couple of weeks. The CARES Act was passed on March 27th, and it funded a number of emergency response funding programs. There were also several changes to existing programs included in this bill. Overall, these changes made funding easily accessible to small businesses across the country. The first loan program that we'll highlight today is the Small Business Administration's Economic Injury Disaster Loan, or EIDL program. Funding is available as a response to economic injury for small businesses through this program. It's intended to provide businesses funds to keep their companies going during a time of reduced revenue and other business activity. Specifically, funds are to be used to fund general business operations through this program. If you're not using the Payroll Protection Program, which is another program we'll talk about shortly, for your payroll, the Economic Injury Disaster Loans may be used for this purpose. These loans have a maximum loan amount of $2 million, and they're for businesses of less than 500 employees. The interest rate on these loans is typically 3.5 or 3.75% for small businesses. There is a 12-month waiting period where these payments will be deferred, but interest still accrues during this 12-month period. One of the changes with the CARES Act increased the minimum amount that was required for collateral. The amount is now $200,000. So if your loan amount is below $200,000, there's no collateral requirement for this loan program. If it's above, collateral may be required, and it can take the form of either business or personal assets. This loan application includes a request for a $10,000 grant in emergency funding. While the decision for the loan itself can take up to 3 to 4 weeks, this emergency grant is expected to take less than 2 weeks to be approved and sent to you. If you receive this grant funding and your economic injury disaster loan is denied, you do not have to repay this $10,000 grant. This application should be a priority for businesses, as it will help them access funding for their business quickly. The next loan that we'll take a look at is the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program. I'm sure you'll have heard a lot about this, as this seems to be getting the most press right now out of all of these packages. This funding source is designed to encourage keeping employees on your payroll. The funding can also be used for paying utilities and several other qualifying expenses. The maximum loan amount that you can take with this program is equal to 2.5 times the average monthly payroll amount of your last 12 months or of all of 2019. In other words, if you paid an average of $100,000 a month in payroll over the last year, the maximum loan amount would equal $250,000. When it comes to seasonal businesses, there's a different calculation to figure out the maximum loan amount that looks at a smaller period of time that is more representative of a seasonal business's payroll. If you have a payroll company, you can contact them for a report to be used specifically with this loan application. Many of these payroll companies have developed these reports both for seasonal and non-seasonal businesses over the last week. Payments on these loans are deferred for 6 months, and there are no personal guarantees or collateral required for these loans. The interest on these loans is set at 1%, and it's a 2-year term, but that's only if you don't have the loan forgiven. Most eligible businesses should qualify for loan forgiveness in the Paycheck Protection Program. In order to qualify, businesses need to use 75% of the loan amount on payroll during the 8-week period following the approval of the loan. The other 25% can be used on other qualifying costs. This includes rent, interest on mortgages, and qualifying utilities. And you can see the list of what qualifies there on your screen. Funds spent on these activities are to be forgiven in full. If you use the funding for other reasons, though, that amount will be deducted from your forgiven amount. Your employee count must stay the same in order to be eligible for forgiveness. If you've reduced staff in the last 6 weeks, they will need to be rehired or replaced in order to be eligible for forgiveness. You must also continue to pay at least 75% of your average monthly payroll from the initial calculations to be eligible for forgiveness. If you drop below this amount, that difference may not be forgiven under this program. Note that if you do apply for the $10,000 grant as part of the Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program that we talked about on the previous slides, that amount will be deducted from the total forgiven amount. So if you're forgiven $100,000 and you got your $10,000 grant through EIDL, that $10,000 will be reduced from this forgiveness amount. The forgiveness is non-taxable. And because of how advantageous this program is, businesses are also encouraged to make applying for this loan a priority. The New Jersey Economic Development Authority has created several options for funding under the Small Business Emergency Assistance Program, also known as SB. The SB grant program provides grants of between $1,000 and $5,000 for businesses with 10 or less full-time equivalent employees. This funding can be used for payroll or for working capital. The program is currently oversubscribed, but our state and federal officials have indicated that the funding will be replenished shortly and another round of these applications will be accepted. We're anticipating that potentially within the next 2 to 3 weeks. The Small Business Loan Program is a direct loan of up to $100,000. The loan has a 0% interest rate for the first 5 years, and it's got deferred payments for the first year. These funds can be used for operating expenses for your business. And applications for this program are set to open next Monday, April 13th at 9 a.m. This is a great opportunity with this loan, and most businesses should also be considering applying for this loan because of the lack of interest for the first 5 years and the deferred payments for the first year. Even if you're not 100% sure that you're going to need this loan, it's a great working capital or emergency fund to keep on hand. And if you don't end up using it during the first year, it's real easy to repay and it doesn't cost you anything to have access to it. Finally, the Entrepreneurship Guarantee Program is designed to back private investments that are made into existing small businesses. The investor must already have equity in the small business. The program is not for new investment relationships. Under this program, the NJEDA will back up to 80% of investments made, up to $200,000 into these businesses. So even if the business isn't successful over the next year, the investor can recover a large majority of the funds that they invested. If you have investors in your business now who already have equity in your business, it might be advisable to begin discussions with them about this program, as we're expecting it to open shortly. even though we've not seen an anticipated open date yet. Triad Associates is prepared to help small businesses in a variety of ways with the funding programs we've talked about today. Initially, we hold a no-cost one-on-one consultation call with your business to determine which programs best suit your business and which order you should apply. Once program decisions have been made, we will provide you with a checklist of information that we need to collect in order to apply for these programs. Triad will then complete the applications and submit them on your behalf. Once a decision has been made, Triad will provide a set of tools to help you track expenses and other operations that need to be monitored in order to ensure successful applications for forgiveness and full compliance with the funding program regulations. We will also complete your applications for forgiveness under the Paycheck Protection Program when that 8-week spending period has been completed. Should you need anyone to speak on your behalf to your lenders, we can also help with those interactions. And when other business funding programs become available, we're happy to offer recommendations to your business should you be a good candidate for those programs.
Thank you, Jake. That was very helpful. Just a few things before we jump into the question and answers. We have quite a few coming in. As Jake indicated, we can assist in many ways, whether it's determining which program is the best fit for your business. We can help with any of the associated applications, and then of course, helping provide any tools post-approval so you can ensure to get the maximum dollar amount, but also those coveted forgivable dollars and grants. Now, following this presentation, Nina and the team will be forwarding a copy of this presentation, so you will have that. Additionally, if you have any questions beyond today's session, feel free to email them to us at covidhelp@triadincorporated.com. And of course, you can call us at any time. So Jake, now I want to just get into some of the questions that have been coming in. The first question we have, Jake, can you advise on the best program for seasonal businesses who have had low to no payroll costs during the off season?
Yeah, there really are the three programs that we highlighted today are probably your best options, and that's why we've been making it a priority to talk about them. Understand under the Paycheck Protection Program, when they're doing the calculations to figure out what your maximum loan amount is, there's a different period of time that seasonal businesses get to use. So with a regular business, a non-seasonal business, you would either take the last 12 months or you would take all of 2019, depending on which worked out better for you. With a seasonal business, you can look at a period of time from February 15th of 2019 to June 30th of 2019, which should increase the averages, the monthly average of the payroll. And then you would take that amount and multiply it by 2.5. So the Paycheck Protection Program does have provisions for seasonal businesses. It does make some allowances for those applications and what you can apply for. If that funding amount does not end up being adequate, you can also apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. As long as you're not spending the money from the EIDL on the same payroll as you're spending the Paycheck Protection Program. So for example, if you use the PPP to pay the first month of payroll and then the EIDL to pay the second month, that's completely acceptable. The only thing to understand with that is only that the Paycheck Protection Program funding is eligible for that forgiveness. So the first half would potentially be forgiven. The second half would turn into a loan. The $100,000 loan that the New Jersey Economic Development Authority is offering could also be used for payroll costs. And that's the one that's got 0% interest for the first 5 years and deferred payment for the first year. So that should also be a consideration. I have a feeling, and from what I'm hearing, that a lot of seasonal businesses are going to end up using a combination of funding to help them pay payroll instead of having just one source like non-seasonal businesses seem to be able to get away with, at least for the first 2 months of payroll.
Wonderful. Jake, is the EIDL funded through a local or national bank, and is a physical building presence required? So for example, if it's a home-based business, would they be eligible?
Unfortunately, with the EIDL, they are not, they're not addressing home-based businesses. However, with the Paycheck Protection Program, there is potentially some help for home-based, because if you're drawing on a 1099 or even as a W-2, there's eligibility there. To answer the first question, the EIDL is being administered directly through the Small Business Administration. So that's not being done through a local or national bank. It's being done by the federal government through the SBA directly.
Thank you. Jake, regarding the PPP program, what are the current rules for seasonal business payroll calculations? Further, the question is, can seasonal use a monthly average?
So the way that works is, if you would like to take your entire 2019 payroll and take an average of your monthly payroll through the entire year, you can use that calculation as a seasonal business. Or you would want to look at the period of time between February 15th, 2019 to June 30th of 2019 and look at what your average monthly payroll was for that period of time. Whichever one of you're allowed to use either one of them when you apply. So if you prefer to use all of 2019 as for your application, you can do that. Or you can use that period of time. It's up to you. And really, it's one of those things that a discussion needs to be had with the lender as well, because that is the way the guidance is written. However, some banks have some other regulations around that. We haven't seen any issues with the seasonal calculations yet, but we haven't worked with every bank that's offering these loans either. So.
Great, thank you. Jake, are all loan and grant programs available for all small businesses, or only those classified as non-essential?
They are eligible for all businesses, whether you're considered essential or not. Now, they do have to, in the case of the programs we talked about today, they do have to be publicly owned. We did get a couple of questions about like tourist authorities and things like that who aren't seeing tax payments right now, and so they can't afford to pay their payroll. Unfortunately, there's no funding for public businesses, but private businesses and 501, I see there's a question about a 501c7 would not be applicable. 501c3s, though, are eligible for a number of these programs.
Okay, thank you. So Jake, what do I do when the bank we use, which is local in this instance, is not approved to participate with the PPP program? Calls have been made to other banks, and since we don't have business accounts with them, they're not able to complete the application. What's our best next steps?
That's a little bit of a tough situation right now. The biggest issue that we're seeing is the federal government through the SBA has a verification program that all of these individual SBA lenders have to put their loans through this program through this software for verification. That software has been having a hard time keeping up with the demand. And so, like most of yesterday, it was down. I heard it came back up this morning and then was down again this morning. But what's happening is that's causing a bottleneck in this system. And so the credit departments from the different banks can't process as many loan applications as they would like to because they can't get it through these systems. That's causing some issues from them being able to take clients. The banks want to write as many of these loans as possible. And we're anticipating throughout the week this week and then next week, a lot more banks being open to taking applications from non-customers, non-clients. However, if you're not working with an SBA bank, Triad has formed some relationships with some local and national lenders that may have some capacity to take non-customer applications, so we can assist with that. Without our assistance, I know that there's a website, there's a portion of the SBA.gov website that does have a place where you can find lenders. But to the person that asked the question, you are certainly not alone with not being able to find an SBA lender if you're not a member of their bank. It's difficult for everybody, but we're doing our best to try to guide people towards programs that maybe still do have some capacity. And just as an overall comment, I read this morning that about $80 billion of the $350 billion in this program has been spoken for. So we're not approaching saturation or oversubscription on the program yet. So I would anticipate throughout the week this week, there should be hopefully more opportunities to work with different banks and get some loan applications in.
Thank you, Jake. And just to expand upon that, I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that we have a team that's dedicated to filtering through that rapid influx of info. But along those lines, our CEO, Mike Zampino, our Vice President, Steve Keys, and the whole management team are working with folks like Lou Joyce, the director of the South Jersey Economic Development District, to expand on the outreach to get preference for folks that are working with our team to get into these banks. So we will continue to keep you posted. And that team is pounding the pavement to expand those relationships. Jake, with regard to the EIDL, the $10,000 grant, is that based on the number of full-time employees?
No, as long as you have less than 500 employees, and there are even some special provisions for hospitality businesses and restaurants. As long as you have less than 500 employees and you have employees, you have to have people on the payroll, you're eligible to apply for that $10,000 grant. So that applies from what we've been seeing to 95% of business interests can get an application in for the $10,000 grant through the EIDL program.
Thank you. Now, Jake, I know you mentioned that you saw a question regarding a 501c7 entity. Could you just expand upon that a little? If that entity would be able to apply for the PPP program?
At this point, I don't believe they would be able to. Unfortunately, the guidance that the SBA has released on these loan programs specifically calls out small to medium businesses and 501c3 nonprofits. I don't know if they will be opening this to other 501c organizations later, or as things change, or we're even anticipating there being another funding round and other programs that come out with that funding. But at this point, per the guidance, it's restricted to 501c3s only.
Okay. Jake, one of the questions on the application was regarding whether or not a business is up and operational now. This question is from a seasonal business that technically will not be open until May, assuming the county allows. If the answer is no to that question, would they then be ruled out from funding?
I'm sorry, if the answer is no to which question? If they don't open?
Whether or not the business is up and operational now.
So businesses, in order to qualify for the programs, needed to be a business entity before the middle of February. So as long as this isn't their first year in business, they should still be able to qualify for these programs and apply for them. In terms of not being open, the way the rules are set up for the forgiveness with the Paycheck Protection Program is that you have 6 weeks after the approval, or I'm sorry, 8 weeks after the approval to pay payroll. So even if you're not open, you would have to pay your payroll with the same number of employees that you had employed last year. Now, there's a provision that says that you don't have to have your full staff until June 30th under that program, and you can still qualify. So you could wait until the middle of June to hire your staff back, but you would need to spend 75% of the funds during that 2-month period on payroll. So if you got $100,000, you'd have to spend 75,000 of it within that 8-week period on payroll, whether your people are working or not. I mean, even if they're at home and you're paying them, that counts. So if you were to not open your business, you could still pay your payroll for that 8-week period of time. There's not a whole lot of clarity about what happens after that, though. I hope that answers the question. I think I got it.
Thank you. Jake, can you address what the best program for a commission-based independent contractor whose renewals and new business opportunities are going to take a drastic reduction, what that would look like?
So if you're a 1099 employee, you can apply for the Paycheck Protection Program. You would use the same formula as a regular business would use, and that's your 12-month period of payroll 2.5 times, and then you would use that to pay yourself. You also can apply for the EIDL program with some some maybes in there, and we would want to talk to you to, find out for sure what form your business takes to be able to do that. But you should be eligible for these programs and be able to apply for them.
Wonderful. With regard to the PPP program, are owners of the company included within the number of employees for forgiveness? Meaning, is that salary included in the calculation?
It is. So if you're calculating your payroll, you certainly you include everybody that you've paid payroll to, and that includes the guy running the show. So yeah.
Okay. Now, the question was asked with regard to a physical location for a business as it related to the EIDL program. Same question for the NJEDA small business loan. Is that also available to any type of business, whether we have a physical presence or a home location?
The answer to that question is right now, no. You have to have a place of business that's not a home-based business. Fair to say that program doesn't open until next Monday. And in one of the webinars last week, Tim Sullivan, the CEO of the NJEDA, was talking about them taking another look at home-based businesses. So right now, no, you can't. You may still want to apply for the program. I think if I had a home-based business, I probably would. But as of right now, the guidance says that home-based businesses are not going to be considered for that loan.
Okay. Now, the next two questions that we have are very specific. One is related to an ice cream distribution company, and they've shared the NAICS number. The answer to that, Tony, will look into that and get you a specific example or answer, excuse me. And the other question is with regard to local banks. If we have a list of any local banks that are SBA 7A approved. Same answer to that. We do have a list, and we will compile that, and we'll have Nina send that out to the participants after the meeting, if that's okay. Jake, if one person owns multiple businesses, but each business is its own entity, can each business location apply for the grant and loan, or is it only one application because they're owned by one person?
If you have multiple businesses, you should go ahead and apply for multiple loans in the same program. So you mentioned different business locations. If it's the same business and they have different locations, you would only be able to apply for one loan for the multiple locations. Unless it's a restaurant or hospitality, then you can consider each business individually. But from what we've been able to understand, if you've got different TIN numbers and you're an owner of multiple businesses, they're saying that you should go in with multiple applications. Whether they're all going to be approved or not is really going to be up to the lenders. We've not gotten any results back yet on applications, so we're not 100% sure how they're going to be treating that. But I would, the advice for a lot of these programs that we've been hearing over and over again, and we keep relating, is apply, apply, apply. Most of these programs, it doesn't cost anything to apply for them. If you get the money and you don't need it, you can repay it. If it's a loan, if it's forgiven, then hey, great, you're not paying payroll for a couple of months. But I would say, if you've got an opportunity to apply, I would do it and let the lenders make the decisions in those cases.
That's a great recommendation, Jake. Thank you. Jake, I own a small home-based towing and repo company, and I recently purchased a vehicle about 45 days ago for a market that is temporarily no longer there. What is available for my company?
I would, if I were you, I would be applying for the economic injury disaster loan. That would probably be your best bet. It's getting around the home-based business conversation there, but again, typically you should apply anyway, and it's going to be up to the SBA how they lend with those. So that money, the EIDL, economic injury disaster loan money, is specifically to replace business operations. So you would be able to use that money for things like working capital to help with the loans on that vehicle that you just purchased, things of that nature.
Okay. This next question is twofold. So the $600 federal unemployment supplement. It makes furloughing attractive for individuals and definitely less painful for employers. And while we wait for the loans, we need to curb negative operating conditions. But now furloughing seems to be creating a problem with respect to the PPP loan forgiveness. We can't be sure we'll be positioned to rehire these folks to qualify for the forgiveness. Can you give us any advice on that?
Yeah, that's a tough situation. And in fact, we were on a couple phone calls earlier today where we were asked the same question. Yes, there is more money that's available for folks filing for unemployment. And yes, in some situations, they're going to be potentially making more on unemployment than they would be if you were repaying them with a reduced salary through the PPP program. So what I would say to you is, I would actually do the exercise of talking to your employees, figuring out, how much they're going to make if you don't rehire, how much they're going to make if you do rehire, and trying to, see what works best for them and what works best for your business. I don't want to offer any advice on unemployment specifically and how to manage that. Just, my wheelhouse tends to be on the regulations of these programs. And, that's one of those situations where, Preston, I think it is, you're going to have to really run the numbers and figure out, what's better for your business. However, if you're trying to make that payroll rehire, you have to make an effort to rehire them. And the employee, from what I understand, if you offer to bring them back to work and pay them, the employee needs to take that offer. I don't know if they can stay on unemployment if they refuse your offer to come back to work. That's a question for somebody else. But there are a couple of options there, and honestly, it's just the math of your business and figuring out what best suits you. And I know that's not amazing advice, but that's a pretty tough question without some specific calculations and numbers.
I agree, and I think as the different programs evolve, we may be able to better address that question. Jake, I run my bed and breakfast alone, no staff. Can I get funding from the EIDL, including the $10,000 emergency loan?
Yes, you should be able to. Any business should be able to apply. Now, the way the application works is you have to apply for and it is a grant, by the way. The $10,000 emergency grant does not need to be repaid. And then the rest of what you apply for is the loan. And you don't even ask for an amount. They'll come back with a qualification for you if you qualify. So I would encourage every business to put in for that $10,000 grant. They're saying that grant applications should be approved, they should be decided on within 3 days. And they're anticipating most of them being approved, and then a week to 2 weeks of it being put in your bank account. So looking at all three of these programs, that $10,000 through the EIDL emergency grant is likely to be the first thing that hits your bank account from all of these programs that we've talked about today. So if you're in a position like many business owners are, I would say that, I would make applying for that grant and the loan that's combined with it a priority for your business.
Another question, Jake. If someone has applied for the PPP loan, we just need some clarification on the ability to apply for the $10,000 grant with the EIDL, and want to ensure that doing so would not disqualify us from the PPP loan.
It doesn't disqualify you, but you need to use the funding on different things. So if you've already applied for PPP, you can go ahead and apply for EIDL. If you get the loan, you want to spend the loan money on not payroll. You want to spend it on something else. So other business operations. If I were you in that situation, I would spend 100% of the PPP on payroll, and then use the EIDL money for things like rent, working capital, other business needs. I know a lot of businesses have taken economic injury in this situation, with reduced business. So being able to use that loan for other operational costs is really what you would want to use it for. And just to clarify, one point we made during the webinar, if you get your Paycheck Protection loan forgiven and you get the $10,000 EIDL grant, that grant amount will be deducted from the amount that you're forgiven through the Paycheck Protection Program. So if you get $100,000 to pay your payroll and you do it successfully and you get that forgiven and you get the $10,000 grant, you're only going to get $90,000 of your Paycheck Protection forgiven because you've already gotten that $10,000 grant. So the EIDL grant does give you working capital sooner from what we're seeing in the guidance. But just remember that it will come out of your Paycheck Protection Program forgiveness if you end up getting it.
Okay, thank you. It looks like we have time for 2 more questions. Just as a note before we do wrap up, as I mentioned, following this presentation, we will be reaching out with a copy of the presentation and just to check in if there are any additional questions that you may have. Additionally, you can continue to email questions to covidhelp@triadincorporated.com, or of course, give us a call. Jake, if you have a new business, a separate business entity with a separate tax ID number that we planned on opening this season, are there any loans available at this time since it's a new retail business?
You can apply for the EIDL. I think it would depend on when if the business wasn't open before the middle of February, if you didn't have tax ID and your business registered and things like that, at this point, I don't believe there's anything that would be available for you. If you were open before that time and had your business established before the middle of February, you would be able to apply for the EIDL loan. They are saying that new businesses can do it, but without anything to show for the business, I'm not sure what your approval amount would be through the SBA. So that's going to depend on the lender if they qualify you, and if so, how much for.
Okay, thank you. And our final question, Jake. According to the regulations that I've seen, businesses have until June 30th, 2020 to apply. Is there a danger of funds being exhausted before the deadline?
Yeah, I would think so. As mentioned earlier, at this point, a little more than 20% of the funds have been, or around 20% of the funds have been spoken for. How many of those loans actually get approved, we won't know. That's just what's been applied for at this point. So I would imagine at some point we're going to see oversubscription of the program. I don't know if there will be more funding put into the program prior to that happening. And from what I can understand, and these aren't official numbers, but from what they're reporting on the news, there's still a bit of money out there. I wouldn't wait though. I mean, if you're trying to get, if you want to apply for one or both of these programs, by the way, that 20% was only for the Paycheck Protection Program. If I were applying for these programs, I think I would really be focused on getting the 2 federal government programs in applications in as soon as possible this week, if you can do it. And then the New Jersey EDA Small Business Emergency Assistance Loan, that program opens next Monday morning, the 13th. When they opened their grant program, it was oversubscribed. Last Friday, it was oversubscribed in an hour and 10 minutes. And I think they got something like 10,000 applications. So if you're going to apply for that loan through the NJEDA, I would be prepared to file it at 9 o'clock next Monday morning. And again, all 3 of these applications are something that we can help with. And we've got staff that can help fill them out and make sure we're ready to submit them as soon as possible. So certainly something we can help out with there.
Thank you, Jake. I believe that's all the time that we have for questions. We really appreciate everyone's time today. We appreciate your consideration, and we look forward to assisting you in these challenging times for sure. Again, we will remain available as needed to answer any questions and provide any assistance as needed beyond this initial phase.
Carolyn and Jake, for that valuable information. We appreciate all of that and all of the questions from all the participants. It's been great to hear from you, and your questions have helped everyone else understand more about the various programs that are available. I'd like to also invite everyone to join the upcoming webinars and programs that we have coming up. We have a webinar on the CARES Act that will be presented. That is tomorrow with Cooper Levinson. And I'm sorry, I don't have the time written down. Nina, what is the time of that?
So the program tomorrow is at 11 a.m.
Okay, and you can sign up for that to learn more about the CARES Act. And then we will also have another program on the CARES Act presented by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And that will be on Thursday. And then also we have a digital town hall with our Congressman Jeff Van Drew at 1 o'clock on Thursday, which will be a great opportunity to have your opportunity to ask questions directly to him about our national response to COVID-19. So stay tuned for more programs. We will present them as opportunities to get information on all the resources being offered to the business community and our way forward. We're right there with you as we struggle as well to understand all that's going on. I thank all of you for joining us again. Thank you to Triad Associates, Carolyn and Jake, for this valuable information. And we wish all of you a great day and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
Folks.
Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Nina.